Hey, Mel.
Hey, Brooklyn Sample. How
Look at
are
us.
you? We're so Broadway today.
We're gonna jazz hand it through this intro.
What if we just sang like that all the time?
When I was in high school, my friend Summer Lynn and I did every day in our algebra class, our college algebra class after lunch, because that was the class where we had the first part of the class and we
Yeah.
split and went to lunch and then came back. So we had all those carbs, all those mashed
Energies.
potatoes and yeast rolls and
Yeah.
and we came back and everything was we sang it in a song. We talked the whole time. Did this
Oh
one.
my God.
Yeah, we annoyed every person in there. It was great.
Tell me, Brooke, about what's going on in this episode here.
This might be one of my favorites. Maybe I'm a
Yay.
little biased because I
A
just
little bit. That's all right.
kind
It's
of
pretty sweet.
absolutely adore this gentleman. Adrian Salpeter is our guest. And for our first official,
yeah.
Industry
We've had a lot of industry
insider.
people on.
Yeah, but we're having our new segments this month, Industry Insider with Adrian Salpeter, who is a Tony Award-winning producer on Broadway for Hadestown. But he's been nominated for other ones like Mean Girls and Beetlejuice, which I did go see Beetlejuice. It was so good on Broadway. Yeah.
Was it? I think it's
so good.
coming to Pantages.
Mm-hmm.
He's
but
really impressive.
He's incredible. I mean, he also does, television and print and film and all. He's like us. He produces and has his hands in everything. I think he's just got a really unique way of looking at each one of these things as well, seeing how they are so diverse.
Yeah.
And I think after, the few decades that he's been in the game, he's dwindled it down to like this beautiful package of personal connections being the most important, the passions for the projects and telling the right story.
Yeah.
And that's the key to success for him.
And which is amazing because he also, you and I have always sort of been afraid a little bit about all the things that we're doing and are we throwing noodles at the wall and all this. And he kind of gets into that, which I'm excited about because I'm excited for other people to hear it, because just because you feel like you're good at a lot of things doesn't mean you can't. Well, he'll tell you. I don't need to tell you.
Well, I think anybody can relate, whether you're in the industry or not. It's extremely inspiring. He gives incredible advice just about in whatever field you're in, how those personal connections are what's important and not how you make them, but just kind of relishing in the random ones that you do make and seeing where that goes. And who knows, years from now, those connections could, sprout.
Keep those doors open.
A beanstalk.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
we've seen it.
Musical about a beanstalk yet? Oh wait, my hair's weird.
Well, but they have it in Into the Woods. It's fine.
That's true. How are you doing today? How's your day?
Well, I'm going to Coachella tomorrow.
Yay!
With Miss Jade Brooks, and
you got the
for
hair.
those who are watching, I have hair extensions.
They look so good though.
They're just the tie-in. But she's gonna French braid my hair and put in these long braids. So I thought I'd try them on. I just wanted to see. They're super long right now because I have it low. But I just thought it was fun. So I have these really long French braids down. Like I told you, I'm ushering in my Crystal Gale. I'm trying to see if I like my hair this long.
I do.
It's about your length, probably.
I think that's longer than mine.
Your hair is really long though.
My hair's really long. I got to trim the ends a little bit, which I'm going to do. Look at that shit. But it also, I think you're more comfortable with your headphones on. And your boobies are out. Look at that. Whoa, she's 50.
And I love it. What's going on with you, chickadee? Nothing. That's it. End of show.
Bye. End of show.
Usually, but that's weird for you because you always got shit going on. You always got something to tell me.
I know, and I do. And so
I lied. Let me get into it.
All right. So you know how you're an Aquarius?
I sure am.
And most of my female friends, I have 3. They're all Aquarius.
I have 6 friends and 4 of them are women.
They're either Aries or they're Aquarius. Like I get my fire from fire and I get my fire from air. Like it's just, So Gray, my 5-year-old Aquarius boy, he's in school and he tells his one teacher, I love you so much. And the other teacher comes over and she's like, hey, like joking around, like, hey, what's going on? Why just, what about me? And he goes, why did you get so beautiful? What is happening?
What is Charlie teaching this kid?
That's not it. That's not a thing. Like that doesn't. You know what he said to our neighbors the other day? He went down there when we went out. Charlie and I went out to dinner last night, and he went down there, and she was like, "What Spanish words do you know?" And he goes, "Ay, Dios mío."
Hilarious.
I don't fucking say "Ay, Dios mío" in my house. I say "carajo." Like
Shit.
I'll like have it. Yeah. Well, literally, but
I know, but he'll start picking that up too. Kai used to say
yeah. But he does. I've never said "Adios mio," and so he repeats that so he's like this little charmer guy, and it's the one thing I also know about Aquarian men, who I have quite a few in my life. Who I see you, Aquarius men, you are they don't want to disappoint anybody. They want to tell people what they like to hear. They like everybody to make feel good. But when you get older, not wanting to disappoint a girl that likes you turns into I flirt too hard and now I don't understand why she won't stop following me to school. You know what I mean? Or why she burned down my car or whatever it is. But it's that like give because I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable. But then when people get attached to you, you can't ever let them go, right? And so I was noticing that. And then so yesterday he said to me, this is a while ago that he said this to his teacher like a month ago. And I was like, oh God. And so he came home yesterday and he said, I was editing and he goes, oh, Mom, I just love you so much. And I was like, thank you, Gray. That's really nice to hear. Because Charlie said, you make sure you tell your mom you love her. You tell people you really love those things, Gray. You don't just tell everybody. You tell people who you genuinely really love. And then he said, how did you get so beautiful? And I was like, thank you, Gray. That's very nice. You make me feel very nice. And he walks away and he's like, is today your best day ever? And I was like, are you
yeah. That is hilarious.
He's fucking on, bro.
He's feeling it. He's found a little vibe wave and he's riding that shit.
Yeah. Aquarius. But yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's what's going on in my house. I have a little gamer on my hands, a lady gamer.
Dang.
I know.
Well, that's really, you got a lot going on there with that charmer. You better be careful.
I know. I'm excited about this episode though, Brooke. I'm excited.
Yeah, are you ready to get to another like fantastic, charming man?
Right? Stop.
Well, let's get into that industry insider with Adrian Salpeter.
Ooh, baby.
It's time for our Industry Insider. What?
Silly. What? Oh, we're so excited. Let me just tell you, we've got a Tony Award-winning theater producer. He won for the incredible musical Hadestown. He's also had numerous Tony nominations, including Mean Girls, Beetlejuice, as many others too. Films. He's done films, including Kira Sedgwick's directorial debut, A Story of a Girl, starring Kevin Bacon. It was actually a DGA nomination. He's a creative director. He's worked with many agencies and film companies, including Focus Features and most recently Amazon. You're a member of the Producers Guild. You are a Sundance Catalyst alum. A Creative Capital Fellow, a member of Reboot, and was selected by Out Magazine as Out 100 honoree in 2018. What don't you do?
Wow.
Adrian Salpeter.
That's amazing. Yay. Was it so weird to hear all that stuff back?
I feel like you guys, are you publicists as well as podcast heroes?
No, we 100% took most of that directly from your biography in Broadway World and IMDb.
Awesome. Good. All right.
Yeah,
Well, if you
because
ever
we're
need a
not trying.
backup career,
Jesus, we're terrible at it. We barely do social media. We're terrible publicists.
No, this is why we just take it from the internet. It's fine.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote it and did a better job.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Seriously, for our industry insider segment that we do once a month. And we are so honored to have you on here and to give us all your like spiel, what you do, how you did it. I think that's like the big question is how you even get into doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll just start like right now. We've got Adrian
I'm
Salpeter.
happy to be here and excited to talk to you. And fire away.
Well, we'll just start real quick with like how did you even get into, because I think you start out in Sundance first with the Sundance crew, or what? Give us all the backstory.
Yeah, start from the top because you're very young. So give us the goods from the bottom up.
I'm not as young as you think. I did shave my beard last week, so I'm definitely, I shaved a few years off.
You're like a baby face.
I started. Well, I'll give you an abbreviated sort of history. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and coming out of university, I did an internship with a producer out in Vancouver on the west coast of Canada, and a producer by the name of Raymond Massey, grandson of the great actor, actually, Raymond Massey, and kind of learned the business as an assistant. I started, assisting him, and then eventually started working on sort of movies that were shooting in Vancouver. This was in the early 2000s, right? As Vancouver was sort of this Hollywood North. I mean, it still is, but the business was starting out up there. So as an assistant, I had this opportunity to work on these huge movies that were shooting up there that we, at the time, they were just the jobs in town you could get. But of course, realizing later on down the line that they were some of the biggest movies out there. Like I worked on iRobot and X-Men 2, and I was on The L Word as the creator's assistant for a number of years, season 1, 2, and 3. I worked for Jenny Bix, who created Men and Trees and was an executive producer on Sex and the City. So I was really fortunate to have had these opportunities to work on these big Hollywood movies and TV productions in Vancouver in this sort of smaller fishbowl or industry, and build meaningful relationships, which, basically in between those jobs as an assistant, I was producing my own work, a number of short films, and then eventually my first feature film in 2005, which a movie called The French Guy, and it opened at the Toronto Film Festival. And so that was kind of the beginning of me getting a taste for the business and the industry, and realizing that sort of as incredible as Canada is and can be for developing talent and for, building a career, that if I was going to take things sort of to the next level, that I was going to have to be in Hollywood or come down to Los Angeles in some way. Yeah. So the beginning was assistant work, working on these big movies and kind of building from there.
See, that's incredible, because I remember when I was in Cleveland and I was like, I'm going to LA, I'm going to New York, and a friend of mine said, go to Chicago, because learn the industry. And that's amazing that you did that. You took the opportunity that was coming to you at what you thought was not the biggest level, but it was the doorway for you to really get your skills in gear and know the business and industry and producing your own stuff, so that when you did move down here, even if you wanted to, you were like ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's the business is sort of 50% hard work, 50% luck, and I think luck is something that is kind of found, and it's what you do with it. I think I was fortunate to have worked with a lot of people who were helpful to me, even if it was sort of like, hey, at Wrap, next time you're in LA, let me know, and I'll take you to dinner and introduce you to some people. And I think that in my early 20s was very exciting, a huge opportunity, and kind of began to lay the groundwork for this career, I guess, where relationships are such a key part of the game.
I have a question for you. When you are in that situation where you're working on a project and you're really getting along and everything, you're doing a really good job and you're making these connections through your work and the way you work, and people like to work with you. When they give you that invitation, like, hey, next time you're in town in LA, come in. How do you connect that? Because I feel like a lot of people would be like too nervous to act on it, too nervous to keep asking. How did you connect and make that actually happen?
Well, I think perseverance is a big part of it, and fearlessness. I think now in my sort of middle age, it's interesting how self-doubt begins to creep in. Uh, Whereas in a way in your 20s, it's sort of like you've got nothing to lose. You just want to get there. You want to make it, and you'll kind of do anything. So, I'm always the person in the room who will talk to anybody, who, no matter who they are. I'm not, particularly starstruck or in any way sort of like classist about who in the room. I think great ideas come from everywhere, and that you never know where your next great story or opportunity or job can come from.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, it was really about wanting to go beyond, I guess, the smaller world of the Vancouver film industry, frankly, and having this opportunity working with these great people. And not every job was an amazing job or a fun time. In fact, some of the most rewarding work was really challenging, working with complex personalities and challenging talent. But you, I guess, realize in the fullness of time that those jobs in a way kind of prepare you for what's to come. Learning about how not to do things sometimes is the best preparation you can have for when you get to the place where you're making those creative or financial decisions yourself.
Moms are too.
I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about this new thing that we found. It is called Moonlight. The magic of Moonlight is simple. It's the experience of reading together with a projection on the wall. Moonlight bridges the gap between traditional and digital books. There are playful projections, vivid sound effects, and read-along features make this multi-sensory storytime a delight. Moonlight is here to help you create imagination-filled, interactive bedtimes for your whole family and make storytime magical again. Use the code Moonlight10 with our link to get an extra 10% off your purchase. It's very cool.
You were in the film world, yet you have all of these Broadway accolades as a producer. How did you transfer? You've always had a love for theater?
Yeah.
How did you fall into that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So growing up outside of Toronto, I was always very involved in community theater. My mom was an amateur actor and singer, and was a part of a local theater company. And very early on in my life, I want to say age 8, she was starring in a local production of Puccini's La Boheme. And as is the case with community theater, finding children who are sort of game and willing was always a challenge. And so my mom kind of dragged me, I guess, the first time to a rehearsal, and I got a taste for the theater and began as an actor, I guess, as a sort of a kid actor in community theater. And we did all kinds of musicals, Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, sort of every single one you can think of.
Yep. OKLAHOMA, Oklahoma.
I was Kurt in The Sound of Music. I was I was a child in The King and I mean, which nowadays one would not probably do.
Same.
You were one of the children.
I was one of the children in Ohio, and I was 9, and they did our makeup before we went on stage, and obviously I had no idea, but some of the kids were like taping their eyes.
Oh yeah, no, inappropriate. I mean, they dyed my hair black. I mean,
yeah,
it was a different time. This was the 90s, people. So we know better now. But yeah, I got a taste for the theater and for just the community that theater is. It is an insular world, especially on Broadway, but more so, it has its own. I mean, I think of Waiting for Guffman, one of my favorite movies,
yes,
Chris Guest's film.
Yes.
Right, and that movie is so funny to theater nerds and people like us, because it's really so true to life how serious the business is, no matter how sort of
small town it may be.
Exactly right. So that was sort of the catalyst for my for my love of the theater and my love of musical theater and also plays. And then in high school, I did theater as well. I played Macbeth in our high school production, which was sort of the one time in high school where I was cool, because I was like definitely a loser in high school for all kinds of reasons. But I had been cast originally as Banquo in Macbeth, in the Scottish play, I should say. And
right.
And the kid, the guy playing Macbeth, chickened out at the last minute. So in about 3 weeks, I was asked, would you be willing to step into the role? And of course, I said yes, because who doesn't want to star in this high school play? And so I did, and learned the part and did the part. And for about 2 weeks after that, I was popular. And then after that, I resumed my loser status.
They're like, oh, we remember now.
He saved the day in the school play, but we actually know who he is. So all that to say, I did have a love of and appreciation for, and some experience certainly on an amateur level of what it takes to make a show and to put a piece of theater together. And then went off to school and had my sort of early career experiences in film and TV, and which I still continue to produce as well today. But in 2015, I met a young budding producer who here in Los Angeles, actually, who was eager to get into the business. And together we sort of dreamed up a company that would sort of invest in and develop new work. And that's sort of how it was born. We raised money and we built relationships through folks that actually I knew from the theater world and the film world. And just, like any other business, sought introductions with the right folks and put ourselves in a place where we were meeting the people who were making. And one of the first people that I met was Rachel Chavkin, who is the director of Hadestown and currently has Thanksgiving Play on Broadway and was a co-founder of The Team, a Brooklyn-based theater company, and is just an all-around brilliant soul and human. And I met her at a party, a friend of mine that I'd worked on The L Word with, Rose Trochet, who directed the pilot of The L Word. Yeah. She was having a party and she knew that I was sort of starting to dip my toe into the theater space and introduced me to Rachel. And Rachel said, I'm developing this, amazing musical based on this concept album called Hadestown from this incredible musician, Anais Mitchell. And we're going to New York Theater Workshop and we're raising, early money, blah, 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 blah. So kind of that began the relationship. And really, the Hadestown was one of the first. It was the first investment that Ben and I, Ben Lowy, my producing partner, back in the day, invested in. And so, like it was an enhancement. It's an enhancement investment. So when you're investing in not-for-profit, you're really taking your chances. And so, we believed in the play and in Rachel ultimately. And I think that's, and I love to talk about artists because for me, it's about people first and project second. Like Hadestown is a beautiful production, but it really was about Rachel and about her energy and our connection that got me excited in the first place. Yeah.
That's
really
great.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that your catalog of work definitely reflects that. And the choices that you've made and what you put your time and you put your chances into definitely is showing its worth, because I mean, look at all that comes from it, right? So I think, like you were saying, if it comes from the right place, then the success will shine from that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, success can be measured in a lot of different ways, right? I think there have been projects across film, theater, and television that may not have been profitable or critically as acclaimed, but the people, there's a relationship that came out of that experience that was meaningful or has been a lifelong friendship or whatnot. And I think, and also like I've had opportunities, like Kira Sedgwick, who's a friend and incredible actor and director, filmmaker. She took a chance on me and my producing partner, my film company, Liz, and gave us an opportunity to help her make her first film. And she kind of rolled the dice on us, and it paid off. And I feel like that that's what this business is as well, is there is a high degree of trust.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm much more interested in the creative or in the partner who is going to sort of believe in us or believe in the project, that's going to put in the evenings and weekends over the sort of, Hollywood producer or financier who kind of wants to write a check and show up at opening night. I think that
Right.
there are, as different producers for different things, but ultimately it's about that energy. And I think that's been like the learning curve over a 20 plus year career of sort of being able to read the energy and like the intention of
Yeah.
people. I think
And
is huge.
understanding who your people are as you go. And that's the thing, like Brooke and I will go to see theater and stuff. And I think every artist should do this, is like you said, not every project had the perfect cast or the perfect crew, or it was the perfect project or whatever, but what you took from it, what not to do, what to do, you took it on to the next thing. And I think even when we go see theater that we may not think is up to par, we always have to leave with something that is going to make us better, whether
Yeah.
it's a connection to something or whatever, because as artists, we have to just keep learning and keep getting better and keep making your circle bigger, in the monkey system of, I take you, you take me, and we build a community, which has always been a community theater thing from the beginning.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Community
think-
theater
yeah.
for me saved me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And I think, one of the things I love about entertainment, whether that's, film, television, or theater, is that there are so many artisans and artists who are involved in the making, right? So
Yeah.
as a producer, it's my job to connect people I believe in with the means to get their work made and seen. That's the job of a creative producer at its core. And but inside that work, inside that process, are so many artists and technicians who are sort of essential to the process. It's like,
Yeah.
you can't have a great performance if there's no lights on stage to see the performance. You can't, right? And so I think to the extent that works commercially or works critically is one thing, but I think you can watch a play or you can watch a series or an episode of television and not really love it perhaps, but have really loved the costumes or been fascinated by what they did with hair and makeup. And I think that's what I love about this business, is that it's that sort of balance of when all of those things work together in harmony, and you have this complete thing. But if it doesn't always work out as a perfect kind of collaboration or a perfect thing, there are these pieces that you can appreciate and love. I think about many great films where it's the performances are incredible, or it's a beautiful script, or it's really well directed, or oh my God, the costumes. And those are the things I remember. Some of my favorite films are not great films, but they're films that were inspiring because of certain creative elements.
Marie Antoinette is one that I always think of. Sofia Coppola's I thought the script was, it was all right, but it was beautifully done. I thought, it was the costumes for me. It was I don't know, just the whole of it.
I think one of the bad words in Hollywood, or perceived bad words in Hollywood, which I don't believe in, but is the networking aspect. And as a producer, I think that is, I want to clear the air with people understanding what networking is. And yes, you have certain managers that will say, well, every time you go to a restaurant, make sure you put your headshot on the table so people can see, and that bullshit. So there's a dirty side to it. But real networking is working with people, moving on to projects, seeing other people's work, being good at what you do, follow through, being honest, so many people that want to work with, and then also being the one that you remember who you worked with that you liked, and you're building your community as you go, is networking.
Yeah. Some of yes, and where networking happens isn't necessarily kind of at that party or at that restaurant that everyone's going to. No, networking can be at the dog park. It can be going to see theater in a community that maybe isn't known for theater, and running into somebody who is also doing the same thing. And you have this connection. I have a new friend that I actually met, at the dog park in Eagle Rock here in LA, who is a choreographer and who's worked with UCB a ton. And we have all these connections and all these friends. We're both working, in New York on Broadway. We're working in different places, but here we are. And I think we got close because of the dogs. She has these two beautiful German Shepherds. I have a boxer. They were friends. I think it was like walk number 3 where I think I was wearing a Second City sweatshirt, and she was like, "Oh, are you in the improv world?" And I was like, "No, but I worked on a show at the Second City in Chicago that we brought to off Broadway and this and that." But anyway, so it just kind of became this connection that happened at the most unexpected moment when we're in our dog clothes, in the pouring rains in December, and all of a sudden I have this sort of new friend and creative connection. So I think a like-minded soul, and I think it's just bringing yourself to the moment, whenever that moment is. And I think there are the sort of obvious ones. I think if you're an actor, of course, it's preparing and then getting to the audition and throwing it away and doing what you do and bringing yourself to the moment. I think as a producer or as a writer, as a director, for people who are in sort of the behind the scenes or the making, I think it's knowing the story you want to tell and being ready to tell it at any moment. I think the elevator pitch is this thing of like, well, what's your story? How can you pitch it in 2 minutes? And I think sometimes we get caught up in the getting it perfect as opposed to understanding what the story really is. Because when you know something that you believe in and a story in here, it comes out naturally in a really evocative and a really compelling way. Now, whether or not it's right for the person you're pitching it to, or I'm in the process of taking a series pitch out right now, and we know this, we've been developing this idea for years, we know it and we love it. And so I don't do a lot of prep before pitching, Apple or whoever. I know it inside, and that is when I know I'm ready to take something out.
That was some of the best advice I think you gave
100%.
when we had dinner
fantastic.
Recently. It was like, and I told Mel, I'm like, what are our core values with this? What the projects that we're picking? How are we going to be able to easily communicate that? So it was just sound advice. I think
it forces hard questions, right? As well. And so I think that's part of it. And sometimes the answer to those questions is, oh, perhaps this project isn't right for the moment, or it isn't right for right now, or whatever it is. But I think when you bring yourself to the work and you bring it and you take it out, people will remember you. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about before, people first and project second. It's like the project might not be right because the market and a million like ridiculous things that are associated with how things are made in a business of art, but the personality and the people are what you remember, and you'll be inspired again, and there'll be other projects. So I think that's part of the process too of like having been doing this for 20 plus years is the sort of like the full circle of it all. It's like when you have like a really bad breakup in your 20s, in your early 20s, like your first love, and you think like, oh God, but it was supposed to be the one, and it was supposed to be the thing, and it wasn't, and woe is me. And then like a decade later, or maybe sooner, or maybe later, you're like, oh wait. Like
Now I see.
Rejection was like protection, and I've learned something here. And so I think like with work and with art, like sometimes it's like just because you think it has to happen now doesn't mean it's the moment. And I don't. Anyway. That's how I like.
That's huge. Like you just filled my whole. You just filled my whole body with that. Like the rejection is protection. Is we really have to open our minds to that and be understanding that when it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. As long as you're doing the work, it's gonna happen. I can see why everybody wants to work with you and why you are doing so many things. Your energy is so friggin' fantastic. You warmed up my whole studio just by being a little box on my computer.
You're very sweet. You're very sweet.
Well, you're talking about being creative on all these different levels. You not only are producing for film, television, development, and also for theater, but you got into working with Amazon as a creative director for print.
How did that happen?
Well, so that's a funny story. Well, so when I first, sort of reverse back, so Vancouver, did my like work as an assistant, started my career, this and that. We're talking back in 2007. I knew I wanted to come down to LA, as I said, and of course didn't have money, didn't have this, didn't have that. So I packed up the car with the dog, and I'd sort of saved enough to live down here for, I don't know, a summer or 2-3 months, staying on my friend's couch and whatnot. And, no green card, none of that stuff. And again, through friends, relationships, was fortunate to be given an opportunity to work with an agency, a creative agency here in Los Angeles that did entertainment marketing. They're no longer around, but they used to do a ton of work for Warner Brothers and HBO. And so I kind of learned the business of print marketing there. And this was, like I said, 2007. So Facebook was just kind of like moving into being a more mainstream thing. And so it was sort of this fledgling digital marketing. And anyway, long story short, I kind of learned the business of advertising for entertainment over the course of 2 years working with Jenny Wall, who's an incredible advertising executive and CMO, and has been at a lot of amazing companies. But she really gave me an opportunity, frankly, and taught me a ton. And then in 2009, when that company closed its doors, I started my own little boutique creative agency, creating posters and marketing collateral for a variety of distributors and IFC Films and people like that. And so I was creative directing these sort of smaller, independent-driven projects. And then, as the producing stuff and in film and TV and theater started to kind of pay the bills, so to speak, in a way that they hadn't in the past, I kind of put the creative direction work kind of to the side, but I was always bringing the skill set of how to position a piece of work for the market. Like I always bring that, when I read a script, I'm always thinking about who the audience is or how we're going to sell it. And that comes from that muscle of having been on the agency side of having clients and having to like essentially tell people how to sell their projects or how to position.
Toolbox. Your toolbox is very full.
It was this toolbox that I had sort of out of necessity had to use, and then was able to bring that skill set to my producing work. So anyway, cut to like 2019 to answer your question. And of course, we were between seasons on Broadway, and I was back in LA, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, would you consider doing a few months as a sort of senior creative director on the print side over at Amazon Studios, Prime Video?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And anyway, long story short, the pandemic hit. It became, Broadway, of course, shut down. All my TV and film stuff kind of shut down. And I ended up staying there and overseeing, 25 or 26 projects over at Amazon, from action thriller titles to unscripted titles to whatever. And I learned a great deal because my background had been primarily on the advertising side in the independent movie space, and certainly in the theater world, advising on the projects that I was working with or working on. But these were, this is a big studio, and so I learned a lot as well about studio marketing, about franchise marketing, about how to position titles for a global market. So again, it's all about, for me, it's like whether it's advertising work, creative direction work, or producing work, it still begins and ends kind of in the same place, which is story. Right? It's like, what is the story we're trying to tell? I think when you're creative directing for clients, it's a little bit less pressure because you're not as emotionally invested in the work. You can look at it as in a more strategic kind of way. It's like, what is our budget? What is our schedule? What is our market? And then what are the tools, poster, trailer, AV, social strategy, all of that you need to sort of get to the audience that you want to get to. When it's your own work, it's a little bit more emotional, right? You're more invested in but it's really important that, thing. And I think I really love being able to like take one hat off and put another one on, because it keeps me kind of agile. I don't get overly invested, and I'm able to look at my own work with a little bit more of a perspective.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great advice, because much like you, which I feel a little better about what we're doing, we are all over the place in our creative endeavors. And after talking,
I think you're very inspiring too, because you are wearing a lot of hats and stuff. But that's one of the things that Brooke and I have to figure out too, is we have the, film, we have the TV, we have the internet, we have the podcast, and we have theater. And how do you balance? And frankly, if you had to pick one, where do you feel you would go? Like, say you want to retire and you only want to focus on one, like where do you think your heart would take you? But how do you balance all of them first?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. To be honest, I don't think I could choose one for a couple of reasons, and I think
Same.
the primary reason is that the way that the audiences are moving and the way that obviously digital technology has changed the way people consume entertainment. I don't think there is I don't think there is a singular track with which you can think about a project now. I mean, even a
Yeah.
theater production on Broadway or off Broadway or in the West End, wherever, it's while it is a very traditional kind of art form in terms of its presentation, if you're not thinking about the way the audiences are finding these stories, the way that they're getting invested in the theater, then you're not going to have anyone in the theater. And so I think likewise with television and whatnot, you need to be thinking holistically about where audiences are, where they're going to find story. And I think too, theater is rarefied air. Not everybody, very few people in fact, can afford to be in New York City, to spend $120 plus on a ticket and to have that experience in that room with that show. So
Yeah.
how are you getting people excited and engaged with a piece of work so that when that show tours, comes to that smaller town or that local theater where it is more accessible, that people know about it? Now, sure, Tony Awards and all of the kind of like mishigas that goes into like promoting the theater helps. But at the end of the day, awareness is key. And I think that awareness comes through podcasts like this and
Yeah.
what we would call ancillary sort of streams. So I think when you're thinking about work, you should be thinking about how that audience is going to find it. I think you can have a dream about like, okay, I want this to be a movie. Great. So that movie is going to need to be promoted. People are going to have to know about it. How are you thinking about the larger picture of how to find an audience? And I think we're seeing that as well, with the rise of, for better and for worse, like the YouTube star and all of that, where right, it's like people that we don't know are more famous than the most famous people we can think of. Yeah. And so that is the way it's moving. And so I actually don't think, to answer your question, like if I was to choose one thing, I actually, as a producer mid-career, I don't think that I could. I think that if I'm not staying diverse and kind of resilient and able to kind of switch and understand how all these different businesses work, I don't think we're. So I can say, so I'm in the process right now. Let's give an example, real world example of a series project. So I'm pitching a new TV series with the playwright Adam Rapp. Adam Rapp wrote Red Light Winter, Pulitzer Prize nominated playwright, amazing guy. He's also one of these few creative geniuses who also works in Hollywood and has currency, I guess, in terms of being able to sell a show and also direct a show on Broadway. Anyway, so we're developing a show that is based on a Danish series called Performances. And the series is this Rashomon style series. So each episode is from the perspective of a different character. It's set, the original show was set in Copenhagen and this theater company. We're adapting that for like a New York stage. And so imagine that each episode, it's a backstage drama. So with all the, the sex intrigue and soap that goes into the making of a show, as we discussed. So every episode, you're getting a different perspective of this show that they're rehearsing. And every episode ends with opening night, the curtain going up. And so you watch the first episode, you think one thing. You watch the second episode, you begin to think another. And you realize, of course, that in the end, the last episode is from the director's perspective. And so that there is this sort of complex sort of world that's developing. And like anything, like perspective is everything. And so we're making this series, hopefully, if the TV gods are to bless us with it. But we're also going to mount the show, the performance that they're rehearsing in the TV series on Broadway. And you have these sort of two opportunities. And then we're also going to build out a social channel for the series that expands the cast of characters to include the security guard at the stage door, the super fan, who comes every night, the hair and makeup person, right? So your world is sort of threefold. It's the world of the series. So if you have, your streaming platform that the show ends up on, you can see it there. if you are able to access the rarefied air of New York and the theater world for the 12 weeks that we end up doing a limited run there, fantastic. You can see it there, and then you can go home and you can stream what is essentially a making of the show that you've just seen on Broadway.
Yeah.
And then if neither of those are options for you, or if all of them are, you can also pick up your phone and you can go on Instagram stories or Facebook something, and we'll be able to see a sort of another perspective. So we're thinking about the way that audiences find story and where they can access that content. And I think whether we end up selling this show or not, which I certainly hope we do, it's one of my favorite projects I've ever developed. I think this is certainly the kinds of stories and the kinds of storytelling I'm interested in most. And I also think it's where, when you look at TikTok and you look at the way that content is being produced and released, I think it's kind of where we're moving.
Yeah, I think that's so, well, first of all, that's an incredible idea. And I'm excited for you because I hope it goes too, because I'll do all of what you just said, watch all of it. But I like the idea. And I think that's something that Brooke and I have to do, is we have to use each of our projects as, like you said, it is part of your toolbox, and each one can help the other. And if she and I just look at the audience for all of them and how they can what the through line is for each and what we can use for each to build on it, I think that's something very cool. Like,
yeah, and I would encourage you, and I say this to clients all the time, like Amazon, for example, where it's like, don't try and reach 100% of everybody. Reach 100% of your niche. Reach 100% of the people who you know are going to love this and who are going to want to watch it, because they will proselytize, they will share, they will word of mouth that elsewhere. And that, I think, is also a little bit more realistic, because it's easier to, right away when you're making something who it's for. So if you can make it the most appealing and the most engaging for that audience, then other people will follow. Don't worry about the other people. Worry about your core. Fuck them. Worry about your fan base. And the whole fans are. That's everything now. You gave me clarity. I'm sure Brooke too. We're meeting later and we'll talk about it, but you gave me clarity, because as all of our TV, film, podcast, and whatever is all, it feels like it's all out there. But what you just said made me go, and so I can apply this one thing to each of our projects, instead of feeling like there's this to do and this to do, and it's all different and and we're jumping around and we have all these different like projects. It's, if we just, we have the one goal, and that we can
we had a hard time at first, because we were like, are we just throwing spaghetti noodles at a wall? Like, are we just trying to do all of these different projects, all that which we were passionate about though, and we knew had relevance and but we were like, what is it? What are we? What is happening? And then I think most recently we finally just went, we're all those things. And we're actually capable of doing all of those things. And we pull in the right people, much like you were saying, as a creative producer, we're pulling in those people that we know we need in our team to help us, which our thing is, you always bring in people who are better than you. It's really good. That's why you're here. Just kidding.
Well, that's the core. That's the core value of being a good producer, is surround yourself with people who are better at those things. You should know their jobs. You should have a sense of what people's responsibility is and what they should be doing. If you're sort of, the producer is I always say it's like the steward of the ship. It's like, it's the creative and the administrative, and you're responsible for overseeing all of it. But overseeing is different than doing. And your job is to facilitate and support, and ultimately to push it forward and push it out into the world. But you need people who are as passionate as you are at what they do to get it right.
That's one thing that we are good at, Brooke, is we're very good at casting. And I think casting the people that are going to be in our circle is because we read energy, and we're very good at only sort of letting people in that, we know are either going to bring something to the table, but they have the same energy and passion and wants and drive that we do. And so the way we cast our plays, sometimes it isn't the best one in the room, but it's the one who's going to be the best one. Because of the work they put in. And so I think that's our advantage to that, which is
we've had to fight a lot of times for that, which goes back to your point when you're talking about it's more about the relationship. It's more about, because I think that when you have that solid relationship or that connection with somebody on a creative level, ultimately the work will reflect that.
And they get better because our fire helps them, and it gives them a platform to put that talent to and feel completely free without inhibition to go after what they want to be good at.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing next?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to interrupt. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. I just say our artists need to create, and that's like the resting state of a great artist is making. And so as a producer, I'm always thinking about how can I help support and facilitate that making.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And sometimes sometimes it's an exercise in just that, and it doesn't end up necessarily being the thing. But like we were talking about before, it can become something else.
Yeah. So you told us you're pitching. You have a multifaceted story
TV pitch
to throw out there. But what else do you have in the works? Because you obviously are just doing all kinds of things.
Well, it's funny, coming out of the, like the after times, like now that we're, I've actually started to really streamline my projects. I'm doing less but focused more, I feel, at the moment. I have this TV project. I have a movie project I can't really talk about because I'm in the process of negotiating this deal but it's based on a New York Times bestselling book. That will hopefully be a movie in the not too distant future. And then on the theater side, also looking at projects, have a number of things that I'm developing, and also some new partners that I'm working with as well. So again, I can't really talk about specifics because things are kind of in the works, but I will say that all of the projects that I'm working on all kind of fall into a similar kind of milieu of can be actualized across platform where audiences find story. So I'm that's sort of a little bit of like the sieve or like the barometer for whether I'm interested in working on something now is where I do think as a creative director more so, and I think coming out of the experience on the studio side with Amazon of Amazon's such a data-driven company, and so much of what they do is data-driven, which I think has its value and place, but it only tells 50% of the story. The other half of the story is like, is it cool? Does it look good?
Yeah.
Is it something that people will find engaging and interesting? And so I've really, that same skill set that I honed for a client, I'm now really applying to the work that I've been developing, and that has caused, I think, like we were talking about the other night, Brooklyn, like that has caused me to streamline the things I'm working on down to like this sort of handful truly of projects that I feel passionate about, A, but B, I feel have legs in the market.
That's very cool. I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see what comes next for you. Now that I know to follow you and that's amazing. Yeah.
Adrian, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Where can we find you? Do you use social media?
I'm on Instagram. I'm certainly no influencer, but I'll share my Instagram handle, which is my name. I'm around. I'm about. You can Google my name and figure out there's stuff going on. You can.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. Well, right? It's like there's nothing terribly. I mean, if you follow my Instagram, you'll learn maybe about a project or two. You'll also see a lot of stories about my dog.
What's your dog's name?
Her name's Alma.
Alma
the boxer. You'll certainly see that. You'll see plenty of my husband and I,
which you're just newlywed.
I am newlywed.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. But yeah, I certainly will share that. And I would encourage your watchers, listeners too, that, if there's a burning idea or something that they believe in, they think that there's a story. I'm so open. Like I said before, I believe that stories come from anywhere. And so you can message me and, it might take me a minute to get back, or I might have you sort of go through someone to have something read first. But ultimately, I am really happy to hear from people and hear great ideas. I love outsider stories. I'm interested in stories of adversity, of people overcoming the odds to make it, and however that is defined. I think that's a hallmark of the kind of content I'm most interested in. Yeah. I'm more than happy to hear from your listeners.
That's amazing. Well, we have a script. We have a musical coming your way anyway. So
awesome
for you to check out.
I love it.
We're trying to just make sure that it's in the right place.
The book has to be at the best where it needs to be.
Yeah. Well,
All right.
yeah, happy to read, happy to listen, and really appreciate the time. Thank you guys for
Well, you are
today.
like you're like a big hug. You're like a big hug. I feel so much better. Good.
Aw.
Yay! Thank you.
All right, ladies. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Yay!
All
Okay, bye.
right.
Moms are too.
Got something to tell ya right now.
Today.
Oh.
Remember that time when you got rabies?
Yeah.
Moms are too.